Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. As always, I'm your host, Matt McKeever, and we've got another episode of the Real Estate Roundtable tonight. We've got 4 great guests lined up. I'm excited. If you guys have any questions, jump in that comment section. We'd love to hit on any of the questions you guys have for any of the guests. Any questions around interest, the market, all those things. That's really what this show is all about. So let's jump into it. I'm going to bring on our first guest here, Zach. Hey, Zach, how are you doing?
So far, so good, Matt. Glad to be on here. Pumped to talk real estate.
Excellent. Do you mind just giving a little intro about yourself and your connection to real estate?
Real quick, real estate agent in Waterloo region for 6 years, and then started getting and investing in real estate quite heavily the last 4 years. And we're primarily investor focused right here in Waterloo region.
All right, awesome. Next, we've got Cameron. Hey, Cameron, how are you doing?
Good, yourself, Matt?
Doing well. And do you mind just breaking down for people what's your background in real estate?
Yeah, I've been a real estate investor since like 2009, a little bit of buy and hold, multifamily, and now part owner of luxury stay, so more in the short-term rental space.
Nice. Excellent. I'm sure people have some questions around Airbnbs and luxury stays as well, so we can get into that in a bit. Next, we've got Jesse here. Hey, Jesse, how are you doing?
Hey, doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Excellent. And do you mind breaking down for people your connection to real estate?
Yeah, for sure. I've been in alternative lending for 16 years, essentially my whole career. And my company that I'm a partner in is Calvert Home Mortgage. And we've really built our business around supporting real estate investors who buy, renovate, and sell, or buy, renovate, and refinance properties. We want to build the products and experience to support real estate investors throughout Canada.
Nice. I'm sure we're going to have more than a few people with questions around mortgages, lending, and all that good stuff. So we'll get into that for sure. All right. And then we've got Wayne as well. Hey, Wayne, how are you doing?
Hey, guys. How's it going? Good.
Excellent. And yeah, break down for people your connection to real estate.
Full-time real estate investor, entrepreneur, host of the Real Estate Investing Morning Show. Been investing in Alberta for 10 years now. Done just about everything: fix and flips, spurs, secondary suites, wholesaling, agreement for sales, rent owns, lots of stuff. Excited to be here.
Excellent. Well, maybe before we jump into a handful of the different stories I had covered, I'd love to just go around the room and hear what your guys' current perspectives are on real estate. I know constantly one of the questions we get is just, is your investment strategy or your approach to real estate currently changing? Let's start off with Zach.
Gotta go first. I don't think our strategy has changed. We do a lot of BRRRRs right now because we still need to keep our cash rolling into bigger projects. We're just starting to move into the larger multi-unit space, this year, and then that's kind of our next kind of a medium-term goal is to really get more invested in that. I think our fundamentals haven't changed. We're just a little bit more cautious right now is kind of the quickest way to summarize that. The fundamentals haven't changed. Good locations, opportunity, add value, a margin of safety, and positive cash flow. Can't go wrong. Those are harder to find now, but in our local market. But if we stick to those fundamentals and we have a little bit more of a margin of safety during these, a little bit more of uncertain times in the economy, we're sticking steady.
Got it. Jesse, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, sure. The long-term philosophy and strategy hasn't changed. As it relates to us supporting real estate investors, we know that Canada is significantly undersupplied, especially as it relates to single-family houses. We know that Canadians love single-family houses, and there is a big drive for ownership. We know that our municipal governments haven't created sufficient policy to ensure that there is sufficient supply versus demand, and that in major urban centers throughout Canada, there is a lot of housing stock that is under maintained, for lack of a better term, that the general market doesn't want. And by these real estate investors, they're essentially creating housing stock that is in demand for Canadians in markets that will always be in demand, which are major urban centers. So long-term hasn't changed. We've tightened up some lending in basically throughout Ontario. Nothing that wasn't anticipated to an extent when you see run up like we did because of quantitative easing, when quantitative tightening starts, we are likely to see some of that cool off. So nothing's really changed. We're lending throughout Alberta and Ontario. Alberta has a lot of different key variables than are going on in Ontario. Hopefully we can talk about that here today.
Okay, excellent. And just for perspective here, if someone's, dealt with you guys in the past for a mortgage, is it the exact same process now? Has anything really changed around that?
Identical process. Our pricing has gone up a bit. Our cost of capital has increased. We've really tightened our underwriting to coincide with that major urban center, basically, and we're looking to lend in areas 50,000 or more. So those outskirts, we've tightened up on. So people who maybe have flipped, let's say, 20K outside of Peterborough last year, were not as comfortable with that type of stuff this year.
Got it. And let's jump over to Cameron.
Yeah. I think the long term hasn't changed much. Just like Jesse was saying, it's much the same in that sense. But real estate comes in waves. We're in one of them now, and I would like to think it's a little bit of a manufactured crisis. Personally, if you couldn't see this coming, you're a little bit naive. But I think with the government policies and the way things are in Ontario, I think they said 60,000 Ukrainians came into the GTA alone in the last 4 months. That's like not even including numbers alone with other immigration. Hearing the Liberal policies released last week with, I think, something around 500,000 I was hearing, some crazy numbers.
Yeah.
So if these are all true, I believe things should, rise back up eventually, but we're in a wave and that's bound to happen. And if you couldn't see it coming, I don't know what to say for you. So really just get creative, stick to the fundamentals, force appreciation, and look for cash flow. Don't think much has changed. I think it's tightened the market to who's playing the game right now, really.
And so like your strategy essentially is relatively unchanged, or anything you're tweaking in regards to when you're looking at properties or when you're putting a property on the market?
I've kind of stepped back from buying, hold, and flipping at the current moment. I'm just with kind of trying to stay in my lane and focus on my short-term rental strategy, but it wouldn't change. I've always looked to force appreciation, always look for something I'm stripping to the bones. And that's just your comfort, like a comfort zone, that little bit extra. So I think it may have changed for some investors, but if you're willing to get creative, there's tons of things out there.
Got it. And Wayne, how about you?
I agree with everybody. I mean, everybody took all the good answers. I get the scraps, but not much has really changed for me. Personally, just like Jesse, being in Alberta, I'm finding that there's a lot more opportunities, and I've been watching very, very closely the last few months, and I'm going to be watching through the winter as well, just to kind of see if it continues. But I see, a lot of people struggling across Canada. In the Alberta pockets, we've got still affordable properties, and the prices haven't changed very much. The only thing that's really changed here is interest rates, which is affecting our cash flow. But the rents are still the same. Actually, rents are starting to go up. So I haven't been buying rental properties for the last few years. I'm good with where I am in my portfolio, but I've been strongly considering picking up a few more right now because it's a buyer's market, and there's so much on the market right now. And I just feel like we can get some really good prices, hop into some rentals, maybe some shorter mortgage terms, and then refinance in a few years. Hopefully, if interest rates kind of balance out somewhere in the middle.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's definitely a question we're going to want to jump into in a little bit, just around interest rates. And obviously, no one's got a crystal ball, but people love it when we at least pretend we do and look into the future. So the first story I wanted to share with you guys and get your perspective on here, this is from Better Dwelling. Canadian real estate prices are the fastest falling in the G7. US gets frothier. So just real quickly for the audience here, home prices are predictably falling the fastest in economies most sensitive to rising interest rates. Canada minus 4.3%, made the biggest drop across the G7 in Q2 2022. And so kind of piggybacking upon this, I think if you were to ask like your average man on the street right now, they're probably got a net bearish sort of sentiment when it comes to real estate. And I think a lot of newer investors or people that are sitting on the sidelines are asking themselves, when will I know it's time to jump in? Or when will I know that we're at the bottom? When will I know it's a good buying opportunity? And so I'd love to just kind of throw that out to you guys each based upon your own experience as well as investment philosophy. are you always, and you guys, some of you have already answered it, but are you always a buyer? What sort of like terms and conditions or price points or metrics are you using in order to decide that a property makes sense to add to your portfolio at this time? Let's jump with Zach first.
I think that's a really good question. I'm always a buyer. There's always deals out there. I think everybody in the panel is kind of in agreement with that. It's just a matter of how creative or how complicated of a strategy you want to be, but the fundamentals still work. It's just more a matter of, do I want to be more protected with the type of offers I'm giving, or do I want to try and get a better price? So what I mean by that is, do I want to use conditions to do more due diligence, to finagle some sort of more certainty with what I think the offer is going to end up being, or do I come in with what I think is a much more favorable price for me in exchange for a firm offer? Because a lot of sellers out there have been burned by conditional offers that haven't worked out. In our market, that's the best way we scooped up deals is, we come in after a conditional offer falls apart. We give them a cash offer that's significantly lower than what they had and say, hey, look, this is a bird in hand. You can lock in a sale. If you really want to sell this property, here's the price. But I think the overall strategy is very similar, just bigger margin of safety, and use some of the tools to your advantage that you couldn't before. Like for the last 6 years, you haven't been able to buy a property really with conditions at all that much in my markets. In Southern Ontario, pretty much most of Southern Ontario, probably where Cameron is too, in the Burlington area, like you just couldn't do it. So use that to your advantage to give you a little bit more certainty, take a little risk, or, bring cash offers and get a juicier price. You can decide, but we've used both in the last 6 months for ourselves and for clients. I'm always buying. I'm just buying with a little bit more caution right now. Newer investors, though, like first-time investors or first-time buyers, like best time to get in was yesterday. Like I'd much rather get in soon, make a bunch of mistakes now, learn from them, and then execute with success in the next 5-10 years. You just learn so much more by doing than sitting on the sidelines, period.
Yeah, appreciate that, Zach. Jesse, what are you kind of seeing in regards to your clients when it comes to, do they have the same appetite for deals? Are you noticing people kind of letting off the gas?
For our clients, it's always about buying right. Right? Like our flippers and burr clients, they're not making money because they're doing renovations better than the next guy. They're making money because they're buying right. So as long as they're working with good realtors, good wholesalers, figuring out some off-market strategies and getting the property at the right price, they're typically affordable. They're typically going to make money. Even in down markets, the problem is like what we've seen in a lot of Ontario cities where the market corrects quickly, right? Like when you see corrections of 20+% in 6 months or less, there's going to be some losses. Luckily, the bulk of our borrowers, they've had it really good for a long time. So hopefully they have some ammunition. They can strike out. They've been hitting triples and home runs for so many years that they should have built a reserve. But also as it goes to that, we're still looking at which markets are stable. So how is employment looking? What is migration into the city like? We're looking at affordability, which unfortunately a lot of areas in Ontario just don't have affordability when you look at your average wage versus your housing costs and other costs. We're looking at, on the burr side, what are rentals like? Are these things going to cash flow? And really importantly, in a very interesting variable when looking at the Ontario market is inventory. How many months supply is there? And in most of these markets where we've seen big corrections, supply has remained relatively low, like 4 months or less. So you're still in a balanced to sellers market, yet I guess the psychology is just like people knew it was going to correct. So it's self-correcting without supply getting out of control. Like what we've seen where people really lose is when the market is oversupplied and it's creating no bid situations for sellers, which we're not having. Houses are still selling. There's still low inventory, which has us thinking that the bottom will come sooner rather than later, especially as we look at what Canada is doing for migrations and for migration, and even who Canada invites for immigrants. 60% of the 450,000 immigrants that we're going to bring in are economic immigrants who are going to come with education, real mindset to work, and usually a mindset to own real estate.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an important factor there you pointed out, Jesse. Appreciate it. Cameron, what's going on in your world?
Jesse, a lot of good points there. I think when you're buying, you just always try to buy with meat on the bone, right? That's how I've always kind of considered things. Like I've always invested like in Burlington, stable neighborhoods, stable markets. I would stay away from some certain areas now, some certain neighborhoods that made jumps that they maybe shouldn't have, certain cities. But if you're buying, I've noticed a lot in Burlington, triple class neighborhoods, close to the water, top school zones. No one's forced to sell. They have really been not unaffected by this, but they've really been holding pace. Houses are flying off, still pre-market listing. And as Jesse said, we're just hitting a balanced market. I'm no realtor, but that's what I'm understanding. We're just getting there now. So we've kind of had things so good for so long. It's really not that dire. This is just, this is how the game's played, right? I think we just with everything the way it's going, we're almost there, as Jesse mentioned. Almost near the bottom. I think we're going to find that out shortly. And just try to buy with meat on the bone. That's just my kind of take on it. But I think you've seen certain markets hold pretty strong with the proper like fundamentals and like I said, stable incomes and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, appreciate that, Cameron. Wayne.
You know what? I think that when we talk about the bottom, I think that people are always trying to time the market, trying to get the best possible deal. And, a lot of markets have been very fortunate and lucky for the last 5-10 years. And they didn't really have to get a whole heck of a lot of education. Buy a house, it goes up in value. Voila, you're a genius. Those days are gone. And I think that there are a lot of opportunities in today's market. In Alberta, I think that agreement for sales are a really great strategy to look at, helping sellers out of crappy situations where now that their mortgage interest rates are going up, their payments are too expensive. You can help them get out of that situation. That's a really cool opportunity in Alberta right now. But honestly, I think we need to all go back to like the basics, the fundamentals, buying a really good market with lots of growth or potential growth with good jobs that cash flow. You know what I mean? And if you stick to those basic fundamentals, there's always opportunities to buy, and it's always a good time to buy. Just buy right, buy with a little bit of meat on the bone. Like Cameron said, just keep it simple, buy a few properties, start with that. Then start getting into the more complicated stuff like multifamily, rent to owns, agreement for sales, wholesaling. You know what I mean? I think we all just need to keep it simple. And if you do it that way, you'll succeed, and it's less risky.
Yeah, I think in times of like volatility, people naturally become emotional. And when it comes to those emotions, it's really easy for it to hijack your thinking process and stop focusing on the fundamentals. And at the end of the day, as long as you understand your business model inside and out and understand what is going to be that like single base hit, what's going to be a success based upon your definition, that's absolutely key. So I'm going to pull up the screen share here, and I'll probably hit Jesse first with this question, but this is from Rob McLister. Homeowners are locking in short-term with hopes of renewing lower in 12 to 24 months. It's a mortgage strategy that caught on like wildfire in early 1979. We won't mention what happened in 1980 and 81. So a little ominous here based upon the way he chose to frame it. I'm going to leave this chart up just for anyone that's interested, but Jesse, what's kind of your thoughts in general to Rob McLister here? And if you don't mind, maybe even provide a little bit of historical context if you're familiar with that period of time when it came to lending.
Yeah, so my thoughts in general are that we're in an inflationary environment, and it's very important for our policymakers to combat inflation. Our policymakers in the Bank of Canada and the Federal Reserve, which the Bank of Canada, I would say, takes some direction from, have said that we're serious about it and have proven that they're serious about it so far. Historically, the way that we combat inflation is by increasing rates, tightening our monetary policy, and in turn, usually creating a form of a recession. And then when we get into a recession, we go back to quantitative easing and rates come down. So at some point, we will beat inflation, and history will tell us that will likely result in a recession, and history will tell us that will likely result in lowering interest rates. So where are interest rates going? In the very short term, certainly up. Both the Bank of Canada and the Federal Reserve have indicated that there is further quantitative tightening to come. It's a crucial part of our business, because it directly relates to our cost of capital, and we have to manage that very carefully. It also has an effect on real estate values, so we have to pay a lot of attention so we ensure that we're managing risk appropriately. So exactly what strategy and timing and having a plan to time things, I think, is a bit of a fool's errand. Though who knows? Some people will time it right, and they'll scream at the top of the hill that they've done so. The ones that mistime it, we won't hear from. But
it's weird how that happens, eh?
It is weird how that happens. But in the short term, rates are going up, and then we look at what the experts are saying, and I would say the experts are the large financial institutions. So we kind of follow them and build a consensus and model out based on that. And the consensus is we're going to see somewhere between 50 and 75 basis points increase over the next, call it 13 months. And there may be some quantitative easing thereafter, but good luck timing it.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice there, Jesse. And again, for me, I know when I was always investing, the cost of funds is certainly a factor, but it wasn't the only factor that made my deals work, right? You need to really understand all the different aspects. And there are times like you have different levers other than simply trying to get the absolute lowest interest rates in order to make your deals work. I'd love to hear from, let's maybe jump over to Cameron next. What's kind of your approach here, and what are your thoughts? Do you have mortgages coming up for renew? If you're looking to acquire new property, what sort of time horizon are you looking at in regards to your mortgage products?
Like coming to investing, like flips, burrs, whatnot, I've always been this 10% guy. So that's never really changed. I've always kind of moved privately in that sense. My personal home here, I got a mortgage on this, big bank, top 3, CIBC. So one of the big 4, sorry. So yeah, we'll just see where it is. It really doesn't affect me. It's just part of the game. I've owned a home since I was like 21, 20. So it's kind of seen it before. It's nothing new. If you don't expect this, you shouldn't be in it. So it is what it is. It's just the cost of doing business, really. That's how I would sum it up. If you can't play in it, the environment, don't jump into the playground, man. So I think it will keep going up. I think it's for the next year or two, personally. No one has a crystal ball, like you said. I think this is a manufactured crisis by government, like the way they were screaming 2 years ago, like they'd never even heard of inflation. And now we're at this point. So to say it would stop anywhere soon, I speaking about what we're jumping on before the call there about even the Alberta push, getting people out of Ontario and stuff. It's almost like the federal government's pushing the provincial government of Alberta to send those ads out, because there will still be people buying here no matter what the rates are within this GTA hub and our immigration stuff. So to me, it just doesn't affect the way I do business. It's just part of it. You just got to find a different deal or move things around. You know how it is. Everyone in the room thinks the same. I know that. So
yeah, appreciate that insight. Zach, what's kind of your thoughts when it comes to mortgages, mortgage renewals, all those things? What sort of products are you finding yourself drifting towards?
I think the comment that more people are going into those 12 to 24 month products with the expectation that they're going to refinance or get a new mortgage product at the end of that term with more favorable terms. We've seen a lot of that. I've had a lot of those questions from clients that already own property or acquiring new property saying, hey, Zach, do I take a juicier fixed rate for, a 2 or 3 year term? And we've considered that for some of our products as well. Typically for our higher rate products to lock in the cash flow that we have left in those properties. But I mean, like, we'll take the residential A financing as long as we can get it on everything that will take it. Outside of that, more about whatever product's going to be the easiest and the combination between the easiest, best fit for that and the most likely that we're going to get. Because a lot of people that were experiencing delays with lending, ourselves included, we had a real hard time with some refinances just taking so long because as interest rate environment was changing, policies were changing, employees were overburdened by refinance requests that were getting pushed back. And I feel like a lot of the lending space was just really just slow for the last, 12 to 24 months. They were just overworked and understaffed. And a lot of that kind of trickled over into the first, quarter or half of this year. So for us, we're finding it fairly easy to get financing on new product, but refinances have been just slow for the last couple of years, and that really hasn't changed for us or for our clients. So we just tried to push a lot of our clients to get refinances done ASAP because we were finding that refinance values, like valuations and appraisals, we're getting changed up pretty quick. Because in Ontario, for me and Cameron, I mean, prices were dropping so quick that you get a refinance done or an appraisal done this week, but it doesn't come back or they don't show up and you got to order a new one. 3 weeks later, your comps are saying something totally different. And all of a sudden I'm $50K short on an appraisal. Things were moving really quick. So now that things are settled, it's not as big of a concern, but for people that weren't moving quickly or prepped for that shift, they left a lot of money on the table and they're going to eat some expensive rates for, a couple of years here.
Got it. Yeah, appreciate that, Zach. And Wayne, do you have some mortgages coming up for renewal? And if so, or if not, what sort of products would you be getting into?
You know what? I agree with what Jesse said. It's the fool's errand. I was kind of thinking about man, I do have a few coming up in like 2-3 years. I got really lucky, just to be completely honest. All of mine are fixed and they're all sub 3%. And I'm happy, but I have like 2 or 3 that are like adjustable variable rate, and I'm feeling those ones. Like the payments going up by like $600. But fortunately, we have a really healthy portfolio. It's got lots of cash flow. So, and that's why I invested that way, so that if things like this ever happen, nobody would have ever seen this happen. You know what I mean? Nobody saw the pandemic coming. Nobody saw the interest rates jumping up like they did. But they did, and we prepared for it. We were proactive, and the cash flow is a nice cushion that helps us ride out this storm. I did notice that the 3-year and the 5-year fixed are pretty much exactly the same. I did see a couple. A friend of mine sent me his renewal offer, and I saw it's like exact same. So that's what my thought process was. Why would I lock in at the 5 point whatever for 5 years when I can get it for 3 years? Just kind of see where the market's at. But one additional thing I wanted to add on was that when Cameron said that he's hearing radio commercials for people telling them to come to Alberta, you have no idea how much that excites me to hear that, because that reminds me of 2008 when I was in St. Catharines thinking about what am I going to do with my life, and all I hear on the radio is everybody saying go to Alberta, and I did, and it was just so hot when I came here. And of course 2008 was when it changed. 2009 was when it stopped booming, but I know what that's going to do. All that Ontario money coming in, all those people coming in, and no one's buying any houses here right now because of the interest rates. So when you got people migrating in, that's going to increase rents because the demand for rentals is going to continue to keep going up. So I'm very excited to see that in the next year, 2 years, watch the rents continue to rise, which is going to help us offset those increased mortgage payments. And hopefully we can maintain that Alberta cash flow. So thank you for sharing that. That's good information for me. I love it.
Yeah, appreciate that, Wayne. Zach?
I think, Wayne, you brought up a really interesting point. We have variable products on some of our properties for let's say smaller or newer investors that don't have that cash flow kind of cushion to offset their variable rates. I think they are going to feel the pinch a lot and more likely to move into that shorter term product, because we've just had it so easy with great juicy variable mortgages lately. But I also think that for people that do have that additional cash flow, they can ride that out, right? I think that those types of people are going to be a little more successful, but like those types of people that are either getting their first or their second property, they're going to feel the pinch the most because they don't have a portfolio of already existing cash flow properties, right? So I think it's super interesting that the 3-year and the 5-year was like very, very similar or the exact same. I'd be taking a hard look at the 3-year too. I like the flexibility of the variable. I don't want to lock in longer than I have to, especially if I'm not getting compensated with a better rate or better terms for it. So I don't know. I'd be kind of interested in the smaller stuff, but I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, appreciate that, Zach. And we've talked about Alberta a couple times here. There's been a few people jumping in the comment section as well. So let's just kind of hear, because oftentimes these panels, I'm based out of Ontario. The majority of investors I know are in Ontario. But what are you guys seeing in Alberta? And whoever wants to jump in first, I see Jesse unmuted. What are your thoughts on the Alberta real estate market?
I'll jump in. So it's interesting, Wayne. I don't know how long you had. Where are you from, Ontario originally? Because I'm from Thunder Bay, Ontario, born and raised. Went to university in Ontario. Moved out in 2007 after uni to pursue a job trading oil and gas, and I am now for sure a Calgarian and Albertan and a big fan of this province. But we've had a lot of ups and downs since I've moved here, mostly downs. So, but you still look at, I talked about fundamentals, employment, migration, inventory, cash flow, and affordability. All those things combined make me really hopeful for what the future of Alberta will be. The energy sector is on really strong footing. Unfortunately, again, our policymakers are really thwarting a lot of the economic development Canada should have in that area. But we educate a lot of young people. We have great schools, great universities, and in doing so, we're building a really nice tech sector. So the economy is becoming more and more diversified. Our average earnings in Calgary are some of the highest in North America. And our housing prices here, so single family houses, for 7 years, for more than 7 years, from 2007 up into essentially 2020, there was some ebbs and flows, but they essentially stayed at around $450,000 per on average. They've increased a bit since then, but we're still under 600,000. So you can buy a house in Calgary and Edmonton, a really nice house for 600 grand, commute to your downtown office within half an hour. And in the GTA, that same house went up. It was $400,000 in 2007. It went up to 1.4, 1.5. It's currently 1.2, but the affordability is really there in spades, which tells me that there's room to run and that people will continue to move to Alberta. Again, I talked about Canadians really having a desire to own houses, and particularly single family real estate, and that the realization of that dream is very much attainable in Alberta, more than any other province today.
Got it. Yeah, appreciate your insights. Wayne, what are you seeing in the Alberta market? And I know both of you guys have mentioned previously cash flow, so I'd love to hear what sort of metrics are you seeing, or would you be looking for if you were looking to buy another property in Alberta? What would you consider a good deal?
The property types that still have cash flow are dwindling. Jesse, I moved in 2008 from St. Catharines, and when I got here, the rents for a single family house were $1,700. They're still $1,700, like 15 years later. It's like Edmonton is a little bit cheaper than Calgary. It's just a cheaper version of Calgary. Just the same rents for each property type. Townhouses, $1,200 to $1,300. Single family homes, $1,700 to $1,800. Main floor suites, $1,400. Basement suites, $1,000 a month. It's it's been consistent for 15 years. It hasn't changed. And to be honest, it's been very easy for Edmonton and Calgary because the prices haven't changed either really in 15 years. They've gone up and down, but they've leveled out. So just recently in the last year, we've finally seen the mortgage payments going up because of interest rates. And at the same time, rents are just starting to creep up a little bit too. So this is the first change I've seen in 10 years. Honestly, it has been so simple. Anyone asks me, how do you run the math in Edmonton? I'm like, come on, if you can't figure it out, it's been the same for 10 years. So right now with the interest rates going up, the only property type that is cash flowing right now, like actually cash flowing, is houses with secondary suites. So we call them suited houses. Ontario calls them duplexes. Those are the only ones that still have cash flow, and it's dwindling every month with interest rates going up. It just keeps going down and down. But like I was mentioning earlier, I'm expecting rents to continue to rise, because obviously if people can't cover their expenses, the market will correct. You know what I mean? People will start asking for higher rents. Everybody's gonna be on the same page about it. So, the type of properties I'd be looking for right now would be the houses with the secondary suites. Single family houses are about negative $200, $300 a month. Townhouses are about negative $100 a month right now, just with market rents and expenses.
Got it. Yeah, really appreciate those insights, Wayne. I've got another story here I want to share with you guys. Not sure if anyone will have an opinion on it. If not, I just kind of wanted to throw it out there for the audience's sake. I found it interesting. Automated house flipping, what could possibly go wrong? Roughly 44% of Open Doors resale in Q3 was for less than the company's purchase price. And then looking at the more iBuyer lunacy, I just found this really interesting to see the percentage change purchase price versus current asking. We can see here from Parcel Labs, essentially, in Phoenix, it's by far one of the worst markets. So in Phoenix, there is over a 10% delta between current asking and original purchase price. So for those of you guys interested, you can check out Steve's Twitter thread here. But I don't know. Obviously, here in Canada, iBuyers didn't necessarily take over our market by storm to the same extent. But just kind of want to share that with the audience. If you guys have any opinions, we can jump on those. Otherwise, I've got another topic we can move on to. Zach, yeah.
Damn, us realtors, we're out of business, man. The internet's taking over. Technology's replacing us quicker than we expected. What could go wrong with automated house buying or flipping? Like, so many things. Like, I know my market like the back of my hand. I've spent 25 years living in Kitchener. And it'd be very difficult for me to buy a property without seeing it or without getting somebody to go take a peek at it that I trust. I bought properties, full disclosure, I bought properties without seeing them. I bought properties in markets I don't know very well because I'm getting advice from people with experience that I trust, that have experience with those types of deals in those markets. But like for me personally, if I'm like, just going to buy my first, second, third property, or I'm buying a primary residence, like, come on, there's no way. There's so many things that you can identify with the human eye, and being in the area, seeing the actual property, like there's a lot of things that could go wrong. Do I think there is a market for it? Yes, absolutely. Do I think it leaves just more margin for error? Definitely 110%. There will be larger variances in the successes and the failures for any sort of automated buying and selling. There's just no replacement for that.
Jesse?
Yeah, it's something we've been following closely, the iBuying. We're very curious. Even from the standpoint of using machine learning and AI for our underwriting. So like, what are these algorithms actually doing? And so far, as Zach had mentioned, they haven't caught up with the fact that real estate is very localized. Real estate is very dynamic in terms of understanding the actual ins and outs of the house. iBuying has worked great when the market's gone up. So iBuying's been great at speculating, but when the market turns, iBuying hasn't performed. So clearly it's just too complex for machines to understand so far. I think one day it will be there. Is it 20, 30, 40, 50 years out or 200 years out? But it's definitely not there today. And it's something that will eventually get done, in my opinion. But we're not there yet.
Yeah, I think with in general, with where we're at currently with iBuyers, I suspect it's a lot easier to be successful in stable markets or markets where prices are trending up versus high volatility markets. Real quick, I'm going to hit a question here from the comment section. We'll aim this at the Alberta guys. If you had to pick a market in Alberta outside of Calgary or Edmonton, which would it be?
On the count of three, we'll both say at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Leduc.
Why bother?
And so, do you mind breaking down I love both those answers, but Wayne, was it Leduc? Do you mind giving us a little bit of a breakdown of that?
I'd say either Leduc or Red Deer. If you're looking for upside, Leduc has been on the top 2 cities for growth, you know, on all of the articles and rankings for years, but just Alberta has kept getting punched in the mouth with oil, floods, fires, pandemics, interest rates. But there's just so many great things about Leduc. It's just been growing like nonstop for the last 8 years. It's nice and close to the airport, the Edmonton airport. It's just like 5 minutes away. So a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll fly up north for oil work in Fort McMurray, and then they're nice and close to the airport, and it's just a little outside of the city. I also like Leduc and Red Deer because they're proposing a high-speed train between Edmonton and Calgary. You guys have never driven from Edmonton to Calgary. It's 3 hours of absolutely nothing, like nothing. Jesse, I'm sure you know all about it. It's just dark. And to be able to have a train, you know, normally it's a 3-hour drive. The train is supposed to get everybody there within 45 minutes with one stop in Red Deer halfway. So if you can, then the train starting in Leduc and going to Calgary. So if you can be in Leduc or Red Deer at any of those stops, you can work in whatever city you want. And it's pretty cool. And so I think a lot of those smaller towns around those stops, around Leduc, around Red Deer, are really going to start to see a big spike as well of interest, because now with everybody, you know, working remotely, and then when they do need to go into, you know, if they work remotely and they do need to go into town for a meeting or something like that, they can just hop on the bullet train and they're there in, you know, 20 to 45 minutes to whatever city they need to go to. So it's pretty interesting. I think it's going to change the market quite a bit.
Interesting. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Anything you want to build upon there, Jesse?
Yeah, I would. So from my standpoint, I consider Leduc part of Edmonton, like Edmonton, Calgary, the greater Edmonton area, the greater Calgary area, draw a circle, you know, 25K around each city. There's a lot of really solid bedroom communities that are very commutable. Like Leduc to downtown Edmonton, what is it during rush hour? Maybe 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So from a investing underwriting standpoint, I consider them the same. The reason I said why bother is Edmonton and Calgary in the greater areas are Alberta essentially. There are some smaller towns, but really outside of Red Deer, there's not a single. How many people live in Fort Mac? Maybe 90,000. Like there's not a single center over 100,000 people. So when things churn, those centers usually have a resource or economy base that really gets hit hard. So by being in those markets, you're really exposed to things that you can't control. Whereas in Edmonton and Calgary, they're much more diverse economies, and in turn more stable. So if and when things turn, you're probably going to minimize your downside risk. So that's our thoughts. Although, you know, as an Alberta-based lender, we lend in some of the smaller centers. So in terms of, I guess, where I would consider investing outside of Edmonton and Calgary would be Red Deer, would be Lethbridge, would be Medicine Hat. Fort McMurray, I've just seen things rise and fall too quickly. So I'm not interested in that type of volatility.
Alberta's not like Ontario, where you can hop on the 401 or the QEW and you can pass like 30 cities in 5 minutes. It's like there's like 3 hours between each city. So Jesse's absolutely right. That's why I chose something that's connected to one of the major cities. It's because some of the smaller ones, there's like barely anyone that lives in those towns.
Got it. Yeah, appreciate both those insights, guys. Jumping into one of the questions that I think the audience regularly enjoys these days is, if you guys were starting over, if you were brand new to real estate but still know what you know now, how would you go about approaching real estate investing? What would be your key focus? Is there a certain strategy that stands out to you? Let's start off with Cameron.
Go harder, that's for sure. There's no doubt about it. Looking at, especially in hindsight now with the way things are, fixed rates, go harder. That's straight up the way it would have been. But I think it's tough to say because your mistakes make you, right? Like the mistakes you make take you so far. So in hindsight, like all the mistakes I made, wanting to change things, but just not be afraid. Just believe in yourself. Just jump in, do it. You know, set the goal high, make it halfway there. You're still farther than you thought you were going to be. I would just say, I wish I bought more. I wish I did more deals. which I kind of believed in myself and my abilities a little bit more than I did at the time. And especially when you see in the market now where you can still make things work, how much easier you probably could have done multiple deals at one time and whatnot. And yeah, but the experiences make you, right? So it's so easy to say, but great question, man.
And so if you were starting over, Cameron, like, is there a certain strategy you would focus on initially?
I would stick with the burr still. Like, that's what I originally did. All burr, straight up, keep it simple. Just lift equity. Don't buy anything renovated, unfinished basements. Find the old houses in Burlington, like that's where I'm from original families, original houses, unfinished basements. Push up the equity, and get out of there or go again.
Got it. And so, Zach, if you were starting over in today's market, what would that look like for you?
I have thought about this a lot because we work with a lot of newer investors. I would focus solely on the burr strategy, and then I would push myself to get into the bigger stuff quicker. And by bigger stuff, I mean jumping into commercial lending, jumping into larger multi-units as quickly as possible. I think that there's so much opportunity in the burr, whether like I have desk hands, like I'm not handy. I'm not going in and doing great renos. That's not a lot of the value. I did that to learn it and it was really valuable. So if you're starting from scratch, like do all of the stuff. Try to do as much as you can as soon as you start, because then you'll very quickly learn what you're good at, what you can actually provide value to your investment and your long-term strategy. But I would burr as long as I could, as much as I could, and then I would just move up into the bigger stuff as quickly as humanly possible. Best way to scale, you avoid a lot of the problems that are the perils of most real estate investors in that space as well. A lot of people just get one or two or three, or they have a bad experience, and then they kind of get out of real estate and they get out too quick and they lose all the upside. And I just think that moving into the bigger stuff kind of protects a lot of your downsides in real estate. And I would just do the same thing as Cameron. I would go harder. I would get as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and then move up into 6, 10, 8, 12, 20 unit plus buildings as quickly as possible.
And do you think you could just do that as is? Is there any resources you'd recommend people turn to in order to be able to like gain the confidence to move with that sort of speed?
Yeah, good question, actually. And I appreciate you helping me clarify that. So the reason I would go with the burr strategy and really push that hard off the bat, as a newer investor starting from scratch right now, is it teaches you all of the exact same skills that you'll need to do the same thing at a bigger scale. So you would do the same thing with a bigger project, exact same strategies, just bigger budgets, bigger projects, bigger time horizons, but the returns and the type of investment that the bigger stuff would get you offers just a lot more to you as an investor, and allows you to kind of focus on where you can add the most value for the bigger projects. I hope that answers the question.
Yep, that's great. And
Cool.
So, Jesse, what sort of advice would you have for investors starting off in this market?
Definitely hang out in circles like this. Like, what's amazing to me is from being from Alberta is up until 3 years ago when we entered Ontario, there was very few communities like this. There were a couple national brands, but they were more focused on, I'll call it, self-serving interests than providing education. So in circles like this, you can learn a lot, but you can also meet a lot of people and build relationships through it, which will propel your ability to execute on whatever strategy you choose. As it relates to strategy, like wholesaling, to me, I didn't know about wholesaling until 3 years ago. There was no wholesaling in Alberta. People were doing it, but not intentionally and not at a scalable level. And I'm a deal maker. I'm a deal junkie, and the wholesaling idea, going out and door knocking and making something happen for really a borrower or a seller who really needs to get out of their asset, and to pass that opportunity on to a flipper or burr client. I love that model. I'd love to try it on my own and see how I would do, especially in my younger years when that regular repetitive systematized model, I would have loved that. But also flipping, it's a nice way to generate some cash relatively quickly and start to build on things. And when you're generating that cash, it opens up other opportunities. It'll open up the opportunity to maybe partner in some multifamily stuff and learn it. But definitely, even on the learning side, to partner with people, there's nothing wrong with earning a tenth of it, but also losing a tenth of the risk and learning along the way. That's something that I would do more purposefully if I had to do it all over again.
Yeah, appreciate that, Jesse. And I think, again, wholesaling can work in any market. I think what happens in this sort of market that we find ourselves in now is if you're going to try and be a deal maker, you really have to focus on creativity, right? I think there's going to be a lot of sellers that are likely going to be very sticky on their price points and not like the idea that they maybe could have sold 6 months ago for a slightly lower or higher price, I should say. And so that's where, as a deal maker, you need to really think creatively, right? Can they maybe give me a first place or second place VTB? Can I get some vacancies and easy turnovers out of this? How can I sweeten the deal so everyone's able to walk away and feel like they won on the deal? I think, again, if you're willing to come at this with a very creative mindset, right now is when really unique, once in a lifetime deals can be put together. All right, Wayne, what's kind of your advice for new investors in this market?
I mean, if looking back, I think about this stuff a lot too. I think I would have cared a lot less about what people think about me. That stuff held me back for a very long time, the limiting beliefs. And, I wasted a lot of years thinking about, what is that person going to think? Or, my aunt would never invest money with me. So, looking back, if I had this information and this confidence, I'd say, I really wish I would have started talking to people a lot sooner. And I think I would have focused more on one strategy, because I dabbled and I'd look at every opportunity. And just like Jesse, I'm a guy that likes to put deals together. I'm like, I see a deal, it doesn't work. I'm like, how can I make it work? And I'll put all these pieces together. But I mean, what business or what focus would I focus on? I mean, just any business in general. I really wish that I would have started a rent-to-own business from scratch at scale. You know what I mean? Like, have the largest rent-to-own business in Canada. I really wish I would have built like the biggest wholesaling business. I love that house thing that you had going on. I saw that. I'm like, oh man, that's what I want to do if I were single and I didn't have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I love that stuff. I love building that at scale. I love, fix and flips. I wish I would have built a fix and flip business 10 years ago. I can't believe I just started building my fix and flip business like a little over 2 years ago. Like like now I'm doing, 12 to 15 per year. I love it. It's great. So I really wish that I would have built a business focused solely on one strategy, automated it, and then gone on to the next business and built that. And that's what I'd recommend to people as well. It's just like dabbling it's you're never going to reach your goals if you dabble. I say focus on one thing, get really good at it, automate it, hire the right people, put it on it, and then go to the next thing. Because you're an entrepreneur, right? You're not a technician.
Yeah, appreciate that, Wayne. And again, great advice across the board here from all you guys. Really appreciate it. And just to build upon that last point, or the kind of the first point you were saying, Wayne, it's those limiting beliefs oftentimes are a byproduct of your environment, right? And so I'm a huge believer you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you can surround yourself with like-minded individuals that are also willing to, go the extra mile, put in the extra work, maybe step outside their comfort zone, occasionally get embarrassed or make mistakes, it's such a rich learning environment that's available. And again, it doesn't matter whether we're in an up, sideways, or down market. You can always be learning. You can always be improving yourself. And I guess like one piece of advice I'd give to everyone right now, regardless of whether, you're a well-seasoned veteran or brand new to real estate, if you still want to be investing in real estate, don't use now as an excuse to sit on your hands, right? At an absolute minimum, you can be binging all the free YouTube content, right? Reading, the basic introductory books, as well as even just apprenticing, working for free, whatever that looks like, alongside other real estate investors that are actively investing. So again, really appreciate everyone sharing their thoughts and perspectives here. And if you guys enjoyed this video, smash the like button, hit subscribe if you're new to the channel, all that good stuff. But before we wrap up here, I'd just love to hear any other parting advice, guys, and feel free to let people know where they can find you on social media. If your DMs are open, how they can get a hold of you and contact you. And let's start with Zach.
Phipps Britain Real Estate on Instagram, and I just got my personal Instagram back, thank God. That's the best way to get in touch with us. Myself and our admin Derek are very active on that, and we're active in the comment section. Send us a DM. We connect with people on YouTube all the time, and we do weekly or monthly videos on the Canadian Real Estate channel, updating everybody on the Waterloo region. A lot of people have been reaching out, asking questions, resources, sharing stories, and just asking for some advice as well. Like, we're boots on the ground. We'll be investing in business and in real estate in Waterloo region for the next 25 years. So get in touch if you guys need anything.
That's awesome, Zach, and appreciate that. And just a word of or a piece of advice here for anyone watching this video, whether it's live or on the replay.
Piece of advice.
Or sorry, I was going to give a piece of advice.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
You go then. You go.
A piece of advice for anyone watching this video now or on the replay is, be proactive when it comes to reaching out to people, right? I far too often find people, they wait until they've made the mistake to ask for advice rather than front loading the advice. So they'll be like, well, I bought this property and it doesn't cash flow. What do I do? I'm like, would have been a lot cooler had you came to me before you bought the property. So just want to encourage people to reach out to Zach. Like, just because you're not ready to buy a property tomorrow in Waterloo or Kitchener doesn't mean that you shouldn't start building out your network, start asking the right questions, and start learning from people. So again, I know you're pretty comfortable answering all these questions, Zach. So just want to encourage people to get comfortable reaching out to you. Cameron.
Yeah, you can reach me at Instagram at Cam Griffith, Griffith 88. Feel free to send me a direct message. And my short-term rental business, my partners is Luxure, Luxure Stays, at Luxure Stays. So you'll be able to find us there. Happy to answer any questions, reach out, Airbnb, short-term rentals, anything, want to connect, you're in the area, whatever it may be.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And Jesse.
Yeah, you can contact us on Insta, Calvert Home Mortgage, CALVERT, home and then mortgage. We have a team of real estate investors that are flipping burrs. We also have a team of underwriters that are on our DMs all the time. So like Matt said, reach out early. Let us go to work for you is what we say. Also, we have a really cool website. Just Google Calvert Home Mortgage. The website, the reason I say it's cool, it's all based on providing resources and tools for the financial success of others. So it's very limited on the sales side, more our flip analyzer tools there, our valuation tools there, tips for flips, podcasts, episodes like this. It is a treasure trove of information that we welcome people to use for their financial success.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Jesse. And Wayne.
I just got to say, I agree with everything Jesse said. Calvert's freaking awesome. Yeah, we use them for our flips, and they're great. They're great to deal with. So that's just just from me and not from him. For me, Facebook, Instagram, I'm pretty easy to find online. Also, we host the Real Estate Investing Morning Show every morning. It's a live podcast every morning at 6 a.m. Mountain Time, Monday through Friday. I guess it'd be 8 a.m. Ontario Eastern Time. It's a 1 hour show every morning. It's like a morning show for real estate investors. And me and my wife just kind of sit there and talk about what's going on in our business, just banter, and people can call in. So feel free to check that out too.
Awesome. That's great, Wayne. Jesse, something you wanted to jump in here with?
No, all good, man.
Okay, awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone that joined us for this episode. Again, if you guys enjoyed this, smash the like button, hit subscribe, all that good stuff. Sharing is caring when it comes to social media. So feel free to share this on your social media. And reminder, we're always looking for new guests, new members to join us on this weekly roundtable, always at Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hit us up with your questions. Again, I really want this to be a two-way conversation with the audience. So I appreciate everyone that jumped in the comments, showed support, and again, just really appreciate our experienced investors and lenders jumping on and sharing their thoughts of wisdom and perspectives. Because I know right now it's easy to get really caught up in the emotions of the different rumors, right? The speculation. What we should really, at the end of the day, focus on is what's under our control. And what you can control is what you're learning, right? What you're doing. And otherwise, just try and, prepare for the worst, but, also still look on the optimistic side of things, right? I think there's always opportunities to make money in real estate. one of my favorite quotes, and again, it's the only quote that Jim Cramer should ever be given credit for, is bulls make money, bears make money, but pigs get slaughtered. And I think that that's really important to remember, right? It's when people get really greedy, when they really stretch themselves too thin, that they find themselves in a bad situation as investors. So again, appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week.